podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hello everyone and welcome to How Are the Podcast. It's Gav and today you join us for something a little bit special and away from the hustle and bustle of what's going on with Sunderland in the Championship. Instead, today we're here to talk about something which I'm sure many of you will have heard about before. That is the Sunderland Story, a stage show which will be featured at the Sunderland Empire for the first time since making its debut there back in 2023. And I've got a couple of the guys involved in the show with me today to chat about it and give you the insight on what to expect. Joining today, we've got first up, Ainsley Fannen. How you doing, mate?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
I'm very, very good. You're currently in a very glamorous location. I'm saying this with
inverted commas, yeah.
Inverted commas, yeah. Nobody can actually see this. A glamorous location on site at the Sunderland Empire, aren't you? Shall we give the game away?
Well, yeah. Well, I'm actually we're currently rehearsing in the Peacock for those of you that are frequented with Sunderland's pubs, and I'm just tucked away in a little, I think chair storage room by the looks of things, but the other guys are still slaving away, working really hard on the show, and I've just slipped away and I get to do this, so I'm not complaining.
Are they keeping you well stocked with refreshments? The food's good in there. I've got the pie and chips and
yeah. Decent. The rehearsals are meant to go on till 6, but I think if you ask our director, it's like a loose sort of 6 because you've got to factor in time for a pint at the end as well. So
excellent.
Or a whiskey.
Or a whiskey. And the voice you just heard there is of course Nicky Allt, who is the writer of this fantastic show. And how are you doing, mate?
Absolutely great, Gav. I'm like everybody else. I'm hoping Sunderland get through the playoffs because it's a difficult thing to get through. I mean, I've been watching so much EFL this season. I actually find the EFL a lot more exciting than the Premiership, and I know clubs are killing to get there, but I just find the EFL football just more exciting. It just is, anyway.
Yeah, well, it was funny because when the manager did his press conference this week, he was asked, when you look at the Premier League and you see when you get there, you see the teams who've just gone up are going to come straight back down. Does that not make you nervous? And he kind of just went, "Whoa, let's wait and see." Make sure we get there first. But I know. It must be hard for the teams that go straight up, but it's the hope that kills you, isn't it? You just want to see your team playing in the biggest venues against the biggest teams and in big occasions, I guess. But we're at a time in the season where it's getting a little bit exciting, and it's an exciting time for you guys, obviously, to launch this show, isn't it, Nicky? I mean, you just bring everybody back slightly. As I said before, 2023, the show was launched. It was its first ever run at the Sunderland Empire. And I'm presuming you just didn't have a clue how it was going to go down. I mean, just take us back a little bit. What were the nerves like, the feelings as it built up to the show launching?
Probably one of the most nervous shows I've ever written. For the reason being is, I still think Sunderland Football Club, even though some of its fans may not think it, I still think Sunderland Football Club belongs to its people. I think sometimes when you go Premiership and you go bigger, as I was a big Liverpool fan back in the day, I feel that once your club gets to that stage, your club tends to get taken off, You end up with thousands of new Chinese fans, Japanese fans, Scandinavian fans, Irish fans, all Scottish, anything. So I just think when we were working on the Sunderland show, it was quite nerve-wracking because we thought it's a bit more like it's more magnified. I spoke to Peter Reid. It was Peter Reid who sort of said to me, you should be writing a Sunderland show because the club it's a great club. The people are a lot like us. It's a poor town. It's historically been damaged by politics and economics. It was once a really rich and proud place. Very, very similar history to Liverpool, Sunderland. And then I also had 2 Sunderland season ticket holders who lived by me, and they were forever at me going, "Nicky, when are you going to write Sunderland show?" And I just kept, and then what I did was, just to let you both know, I don't think I've ever told Ainsley this neither. When you actually check Sunderland's history and you go right back to the beginnings, and Sunderland they were the biggest club in the world because they were winning everything. Tom Watson, the manager, then left and made Liverpool a great side, their first championship winning side, and the goalkeeper, Ned Doig. So I'm finding out all this stuff, and then I found out that, who Brian Clough loved playing for, who Bob Paisley was very upset that he never got signed by Sunderland and then went to sign for Liverpool. And all this history was all intertwined. And every time I passed these guys in the street without me going on, it was like, Nicky Sunderland, Nicky Sunderland. So I went to see Peter Reid again. Club was in a decent place. They had new owners and stuff. Well, the owner, the young guy, was not long there. And it just seemed like the right thing to do. The other clubs that I'd written for, Celtic and Liverpool, they were a little bit different in a way. They didn't feel like they were owned by the people of just the city. They felt like and I do feel, and I'll say this just to end the question, because I know I've answered it in a long way. I feel if Sunderland do go up to the Premiership, which is a really good chance, and then there's new investments and stuff, I think Sunderland have got the opportunity to be an absolutely huge club. And so I just thought it was the right time, because maybe once they go Premiership, maybe they won't even want to talk to me. So there you go.
Ainsley, you're obviously a Sunderland fan, right?
I am,
a Sunderland fan.
Die hard for my sins.
Yeah, tell us a bit about your Sunderland origin story.
Yeah, so born and bred Sunderland, actually. I'm from Castletown. That's where I've lived my whole life, really, before I went down to London to study at drama school. But it was one of those things where when I was younger, I'm from one of those sort of traditional families where it's my dad's support is a diehard Sunderland fan, and then my granddad's a diehard Sunderland fan. So I was talking about this in rehearsals the other day, actually, and it was like, I think I was about 6 or 7, and my dad used to take me across. I had to go across the town, and he'd be in the pubs beforehand with all his mates. And I said, from about the age of 6 to 16, I don't think I ever seen a kickoff at the Stadium of Light, because it was
same.
You understand what that means, yeah. And I used to get fuming, because I used to say to my dad, I used to be like, if we'd often arrive and see if a goal had gone in within the first 10 minutes, I'd missed the goal. And I used to say, what's the point in even coming if we're not going to be here to see the goals and stuff? But it is it's that culture thing, isn't it? Of Saturdays are for the football, and that definitely feels like it's definitely a Sunderland thing. And yeah, I started going to the games. I had a season ticket for about 10 years before I went down to London, and I started going to the games. I think it must have been around Keno's era, because I remember you had my favourite player when I was little. Actually, was, I don't know if you should remember, Carlos Edwards.
Of course, yeah.
I was absolutely obsessed with Carlos Edwards. And I remember that goal he scored against Burnley from about 40 yards out. And it was,
we had 5 yards on every time someone talks about it.
Yeah. It'll be 50 yards I think next time.
Well, I think the commentary from Simon Crabtree, I think he said he shot from the banks of the Weir, didn't he?
On the banks of the Weir, yeah. That's what I was going to say, yeah. And it's just, it marries itself together perfectly. And yeah, it's one of those things. I remember going when I was little, and I think it's the case, it's like a case of earning your stripes, really, innit? Because my dad would take us, and it was chucking down with rain, and we'd lose a game, and, you'd be thinking, oh, man. But then it's like, it was when I started to get a little bit older, sort of, 12, 13, that's when I started to realize, we've got a special club. I stand by that. I know I'm biased, obviously, because I'm a massive Sunderland fan, but we really do have a special club in terms of, like Nicky was saying, it still belongs to the people. And there's so many I can't imagine. I've got mates, actually, who, a club does well, and they'll pedal off the success of that, and all of a sudden they're a fan of someone else. And I can't imagine that. One, because my dad would kill us, and two, I can't see. I know it's cliche, but it's Sunderland until you die, and I stand by that, because we absolutely love the football club, and I'm a diehard Sunderland fan. What can I say?
Nicky, obviously your background's slightly different. Listeners will probably be able to tell from your voice that you're not from Sunderland, but you've done a number of these shows, haven't you, down the years? I mean, just tell us a little bit about your background in terms of stage shows and stories about places like Sunderland and football clubs like Sunderland.
Yeah, and I've written a lot of other shows, Gav. I've written a lot of shows, that are traditional musical shows. But because of the football culture, I'd always grown up, and I grew up in a very similar place, like to yourselves as Sunderland, Liverpool. People are football mad. The difference today is, I would say, in the past they would have been very, very similar, but now the difference is Liverpool, because it's had success under Jurgen Klopp, especially last 10 years. The club has literally exploded support-wise, and you literally cannot get in the ground. I think the season ticket list is something ridiculous, like 100,000 people. It is that bad. And I think a lot of local people feel really, really pushed out, like they don't belong anymore, like they feel disenfranchised. And writing Sunderland, it was something I wanted to do because people were asking me, like I say, but on my theatre background, I didn't want to lose my football culture, even though I felt it was being taken away from me year by year by year. I knew football culture. I mean, I was at the last Sunderland game at Roker Park, Sunderland Liverpool. I was there when the ground was falling to bits. I've been to the old Roker Park probably more times than I've been to the Stadium Light. I've been to the Stadium Light a few times to see Sunderland. I've been to a few times to see Liverpool. But I've been to Roker Park probably about 10 times. So show me age as well there. And so I never wanted to let go of all of my football culture. So even though I've written shows like Brick Up the Mersey Tunnels, Lost in Colomendy, things that had nothing to do with football, I also wanted to write football stuff. So I did start by writing the history of Liverpool Football Club as a drama on stage. Then I carried on to write the Celtic one, they came in to see the Liverpool show and went, would you be interested in doing one of these for us? I went, yeah, very much so. Then I spoke with Peter Reid, as I say, and the local people, there were season ticket holders here, two of them, and I said, you know what, it's a bit of a pressure with Sunderland, and that's why I got to here. I just thought, you know what, I'd like to take that gamble and take the pressure on, because I like the history of the shipbuilding, the mines, Durham, all the characters that were involved in the team. And once you start going through past Rach Carter and you're going past you're going past Bob Stoker, and you go right to the beginning to your Tom Watsons, you start out the teachers. It just was a very interesting story. So that's why I got here.
Yeah, and Ainsley, you play the part of Kevin Carter, don't you? The son
I do, yeah.
in the family. But can you just give everyone a bit of an overview? I don't want you to give the game away, and we want people to turn up and buy tickets and see the show. But what's the premise of the story that people can expect to come and see?
Essentially, it's not too dissimilar from how I was describing my origin, actually, with Sunderland Football Club, in that the story essentially centres around a grandfather of the family, head of the family, sort of passed away, and they're at his funeral and his wake, and they're sort of celebrating his life, but you can't celebrate his life without celebrating Sunderland Football Club, because he was a diehard fan, and it's passed down into the family, and it starts off in the early days, like Nicky was saying, and you relive the history of Sunderland Football Club. But not only relive the history of the football club, you relive the history of the city, because I do believe that the two go hand in hand. I was saying this the other day, actually, and I was like, if you ask anyone, or name me 5 things to do with London, I highly doubt that in there would be your likes of Arsenal, Chelsea, they probably wouldn't mention football. But if you ask anyone, name me 5 things to do with Sunderland Football Club, I can almost guarantee you will be in the top 5, because it's so crucial to the city. And that's what I think this show really encapsulates. We go from the early days of the setting up of the club in 1880, and then the almost pinnacle, as it were, as it is for the club, is the highlight of the show is probably the 73 Cup final, because it's such an important part of our history. I wasn't there, but I was brought up on stories of 1973, from my granddad, and you can't have Sunderland without the 73 Cup final. And then it goes more into the modern era and stuff that's happened in more recent years. And I think that's the beauty of the show almost, is that you could probably get an 80-year-old person to come, a 50-year-old person to come, and a 10-year-old person to come, and they'd all get something from the show, because it highlights little parts of their their history with Sunderland. And that was one of the great things in the pub afterwards when I was talking to the fans, is that sort of, it's the beauty of that reliving past memories. And they were going, oh yeah, remember Marco Gabbiadini? What a player he was, by the way. And it's taken people back to really, really beautiful memories for them. And every Sunderland fan will have a different part of their history will be a different part of Sunderland's history. And, for me, for example, it's when I think of the highlight of my time watching Sunderland was probably the 2013 League Cup final against Man City, because that was the first time I'd ever been to Wembley. And I was watching Sunderland. I remember Fabio Barini scored that goal, and we were like, what on earth? Because we were the underdog, and it was like, I couldn't believe it. We were 1-0 up against City. Obviously, that didn't go to plan. But then a couple of years later, I managed to watch us obviously get promoted with Wickham at Wembley as well. And yeah, it's such a great show, and it appeals to everyone. So whether you're a Sunderland fan of 80 years of age or 10 years of age, you'll get something from this show, because it really is something for everyone.
Yeah, I went to the first run, Nicky, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I went with my dad. I went with my mates. It was funny. It was good to listen to in terms of music. Was fantastic. Everybody joined in from the crowd and stuff. But also on top of that, it was emotional. It was sad. And as Ainsley just touched on there, I think it's important actually, not just for fans my age and older, but I think it's important probably for kids to come along to the show, and because it's quite a fun way, isn't it, to teach kids about their football club and why it means so much, not just on a footballing level, but to the place they're from and their families and things like that.
You know what, Gavin, I have to say, doing this job, which I love doing this job, and it took me years to get to this job, the nicest thing I have ever heard was a dad must have been about 40, and he was with his own dad and a really little kid, and they said, it's fantastic because my dad's of an age where they don't show much emotion. They're very they don't really show emotion, the older generation. And he said, we just all connected with the show. It's the nicest thing you ever hear with the show. It is when somebody says that. And we've seen really, you'll know this yourself, Ainsley, we've seen little tiny kids galore in there. We've seen really older people, men and women in there, and middle-aged too. So it is across the ages. And that's what I'd say, for me, personally, that's the nicest thing about the show. It's the thing that I really, really love. Just so you know, because I probably think you both don't know, I've only just recently found out that's a writer in Liverpool called Jeff Golding. I think he's written a book about Tom Watson, the original team of all the talents, the manager and stuff. So you may want to look for that, because he's been in touch with me to ask could he come and see the show, and he'd been in touch with the Sunderland historian guy, Rob Mason. But sorry, just jumping back, I just thought of Jeff writing that book. That's the nicest thing when you see different generations coming in together to see the show.
Yeah, it was amazing. I thought, I thought, going into it, I didn't really know what to expect. Me and Ainsley were talking about this before we started. I didn't know what to expect. Like, what's it going to be like? How's it going to, how do you make Sunderland Story into a stage show? But I just think it was perfect, and it's been altered, hasn't it, this year? In terms of the first run was 2 years ago. That was the year of it was the 50th anniversary of the cup final in '73. So that was a big focus of that show. And at the time, Tony Mowbray was manager. There's quite a lot changed since it might have only been 2 years, but quite a lot's changed. So for anybody who's maybe already been and might still be keen to come back, what's changed between the 2 years?
Is that for Ainsley or for me?
For yourself, Nicky, sorry, yes.
Yeah, just to say, one of the main things, and Ainsley will attest to this, we have some new cast, so things always change anyway. Yeah. We have some new cast, we have some new stories, new manager, and I think the turnover in Sunderland, which is not good for the supporters, the turnover of managers in the last 20 years has been ridiculous, and I think the club just needs stability. From what sometimes looking outside it, you can see it clearer. Well, the fans themselves know. And I remember watching the Netflix documentary like everybody did and just thinking, this is my opinion, by the way, it may not be yours, but my opinion was like, there's a hell of a lot of sadness here, a hell of a lot of
Yeah.
turmoil.
Yeah.
You know,
We've
with the
lived it,
fan,
Nicky. We've lived it.
yeah, and the fans were going to the games week in, week out, and all they were ever getting was bad stories. And I thought to myself, what did one Sunderland fan say to me at the show once? He went to me, you should just support Sunderland, Nicky. He said, because it makes you, he said, if you're a kid and you're a Sunderland fan, it makes you grow up stronger as a man. That's what he said. So I was watching the Netflix documentary and I was seeing all the stuff that was going on, and the turnover of managers are ridiculous. But what you have to understand, and younger people don't really get, Sunderland's history is unbelievable. So writing the script, what it came down to, it wasn't even looking for newer stuff for this showing of this production that we're going to have now. You have to come up with elimination. So you put Sunderland's history out before you, and then you end up going, well, we can't put that in because we haven't got the time. You'd end up with a 3-4 hour show. You can't put this in. You can't put this in. Okay, well, we'll put this in. And sometimes you go with the more interesting story than the more, maybe say, glamorous story. So 73 also, and I've probably said this to Ainsley about 10 times during the last production, is what a lot of younger people don't realise. This is to do with the last show. We had to celebrate 73 because it was monumental when Sunderland won that. The FA Cup final was the Champions League today. The Champions League was the European Cup final, and the Champions League was less important than the FA Cup in 1973. So that's why it was so important to celebrate that 2 years ago. Now, that's not there. And I think, you know, I could write 3 shows for Sunderland. I could. And people who are younger, who've only seen present day may think, well, where's the trophies? Where's the success? Where's this? Where's that? It's not just about that. It's about the supporting. It's about even when they got the record number of points when they won a championship, you know, under Peter Reid, and when they almost made Europe that year, and I think they came 7th, was it? I was talking with Ainsley about this the other day. It's the almost thing that kills you, keeps you there, you know? And I do feel with Sunderland that once they win something big, and they will, people may think, no, it doesn't look like they will. And when they win something big, like the last time when they won the playoffs down in London, it's going to be monumental. It's going to be a party to end all parties. I mean, if Newcastle have just had a bit of a celebration when they won the League Cup, I can only imagine what Sunderland's going to be like, really, because I think it's still the people's club.
Yeah, well, the playoff final a couple of years ago was the best day of my life. I don't know what you think, Ainsley.
I was going to say I could second that. Best day of mine as well.
Yeah, because I got to see my team win at Wembley, having seen them lose there so many times.
Yeah,
it didn't matter that it was in League One, and there was about 65,000 of us there. It was just, so you're right. You know, I think it's look, none of us are Sunderland fans because we're successful. It's bred into us. We like Ainsley. I had absolutely no choice. I was if I'd have been anything other than a Sunderland fan, I'd have been disowned. And so, you know, it wouldn't have mattered. You know, either way, I was always going to be a Sunderland fan.
Do you know what, Gavin? If I can even cut across, you know what you're saying there a little bit, because you know that saying that Niall Quinn came up with about it gets under your skin. Yeah. It really does, because I have to say to you now, I look for Sunderland's results all the time now, and when they get beat, I turn around to my missus and I go, they got beat. And it's a bit like that saying by Niall Quinn. What was the saying, Ainsley? You were repeating it back to me the other day.
It's I might be paraphrasing here, but it's something like I learned how to play football at Arsenal. I learned my trade at Arsenal. I played football at Man City, but Sunderland got under my skin. Something along those lines, and it's true, because it's sorry, just going off what you were saying before, Gav, as well, about the playoff win. When you were talking about it being the best day of your life, my dad had been to Wembley 9 times before that. He'd been to Wembley 9 times and he'd never seen Sunderland win. And I'd been 4 times, and I'd not seen us win. And then to win it, I was with my dad at Wembley. So when we won it, it was really quite emotional. I can remember. I'm sure you probably felt the same, Gav, but there was loads of fans there who were. Yeah. It was something, and I remember on the big screen, they showed Quinny and Reid, didn't they? And the people, the chants were going up. We were singing. And there's a brilliant clip of when the players are all stood there in the line before the game, and we start singing Wise Men Say, I think it is. And it was just before the game, and you can see Luke O'Nien is stood there, and he's got the biggest smile. He's just taking it all in, because, no disrespect to Wickham, but Wickham are nowhere near our level. And that day we took over Wembley, and it was, it gives us goosebumps now, actually. I can't just, unless you were there, and you'll be able to test, Gavin. I mean, obviously the TV footage of it will do it somewhat justice, but actually being there in person, it was.
Do you know what? If I say to you, and I think you might get it as an outsider too, is 1973, I was a little kid, and I've told people at the club this as well, is that Leeds are a massive club. But 1973, what I remember as a little kid, we were all sat watching the telly because we all used to sit and watch the FA Cup final, and Sunderland took over Wembley against Leeds.
Yeah.
So we were going, where have all these red and white supporters come from everywhere, all over the ground here? And next minute, Sunderland won, which was an incredible thing. And probably about 4 weeks later, kids on the field in Liverpool where we were had Sunderland kits on.
Love that.
That's how it works. So, if there was 20 kids playing footy on the field, about 4 of them had Sunderland kits on, and we used to say, is it Stoke City or is it Sunderland? And, is this bit of a joke going on? So that's what success can do for you. But if it just also adds to what you're saying, because it is something I might miss, is I think when you come to Sunderland as well and then you go off the motorway, it's quite a way into the town. And I was talking with Rob Mason about this. It does feel like when you go to Sunderland, you end up getting to the sea, and Seaburn and the beach and wherever it is and Roker Park. It's like you've only come there for a reason. So once we decided we were doing the show and I wrote the Sunderland show, we were here to do the show properly. So, it took a lot of hard work, because when you've travelled that far and then you've come off the motorway and then you're in Sunderland, you realise it's a place sort of like cut off on its own a little bit. You've got Newcastle above. You haven't got much below, there's like Darlington and Middlesbrough, but Sunderland is a place by itself. So no wonder, I think, with the history of the city, the mining and the shipbuilding and stuff, no wonder that people feel, they've got a really strong feeling for their own club. And that's part of the reason why I feel really, really proud to have done this show and to be involved in it.
It's interesting what Ainsley said there before about, Luke O'Nien standing on the pitch and taking it all in and stuff. Because just before we sat down to record this, I was just doing a little bit of looking about on YouTube and watching interviews that you had done in the past and stuff. And it just automatically rolled onto a video about Luke O'Nien and his Sunderland story. And he takes, people can catch up on this. It's from a couple of years ago now, but he takes you through what it was like to be on the pitch that day. And
wow.
Even then he was getting goosebumps, and I still do now. I mean, it was immense. And I think, if you could just capture that feeling in a bottle, I think that is the pinnacle of what it must be like to be a Sunderland fan. And back in 73, it'll have been exactly the same, people just going there to be proud of who they are. And I guess in many ways, that must be for you, Ainsley. That must be great, because you're a Sunderland lad. You obviously live down south now. You've been away for a long time, and you come back when you can and what have you. But to be able to do a show about Sunderland in Sunderland at the Empire on that stage with your mates and your family and all that in the crowd, I mean, what is that like?
It's a dream. I know it sounds cliche, but it literally is. It's a dream job, because as well as being a massive Sunderland fan when I was little, I obviously did a lot of performing as well. So I essentially grew up on Sunderland Empire Theatre, because I was always doing shows there. And they, in terms of the city, they really do feel like the two cornerstones. Is you've got the Empire, which is the biggest theatre in the north, I believe, and you've also got the football club, massive in this region. And it was, I'll never forget it as long as I live, and I mean this, no matter where my career takes me, because like you were saying, Gav, you didn't know what to expect, and I think I'd be naive to say that as a cast and a crew, I don't think we knew what to expect neither for a little bit. We were like, oh no, what is the show? Like, how will it be received? Because we'd never done it in front of an audience. And then it was the first night, and I don't want to obviously give any spoilers, but at the end of the show, there's obviously a song which is very synonymous with Sunderland Football Club that might be sung by a certain Mr. Presley. And and another of the cast members, Jude, she started singing it, and we'd been in rehearsals, and we'd got this lovely, like, sort of 5-part harmony, and we'd been rehearsing it for weeks and weeks, and it sounded all lovely. And Jude literally started, and she said the word wise, and then out of nowhere, 2,000 people just stood up, all with their shirts on, scarves, and it was like a massive choir. The whole of the Empire was singing as one, and we didn't plan for that. I actually stopped singing. And I just, similar to like you see with Luke O'Nien, I stood there and I just took it all in. I got really emotional, and and then Jude, who's another one of the cast members, looked at me. She then got emotional, as a result of it, and it was honest. I'll go so far as to say that feeling right there in that moment on opening night was probably the best I've ever felt on the stage, because honestly, it's people talk about being, feeling proud and pride, but pride really is a feeling for me. And in that moment, I've never felt more proud. And then from that moment onwards, the rest of the shows were just a joy to perform, because it's almost like we took the seatbelt off, the shoulders went down and went, okay, this isn't for us. We're not doing it for us. We're doing it for the fans. And every night was just an absolute blessing. And to go back to the 73 Cup final, one of my other favourite memories from doing the show last time was my granddad. He's seen every single game in the cup run leading up to the 73 Cup final, but he couldn't get a ticket for the final. He talks about he waited in this massive long queue, and then when he got to the front, they'd run out of tickets. So he never got to go to the Wembley for the final. And then one of the beauties about last time is one of the players we got to come and lift the cup from that team was Richie Pitt. And one of the nights that my granddad came to see it, Richie Pitt was on and he lifted the cup. And we went to the pub afterwards to sort of celebrate, and Richie Pitt was there with his wife, and everyone was getting along. And I actually got to introduce my granddad to Richie Pitt. And I remember, sorry, I'm getting a bit choked up speaking about it now, but I remember my granddad shook his hand and he was just like, Richie Pitt, thank you so much for the memories, mate. And it was literally like, it was just beautiful, because what was brilliant is that if you're from Sunderland, you support Sunderland Football Club, you get it. So the show makes sense because you get it. You know what it's like to support how special this club can be. But I had mates, parents and other mates that came from other parts of the country. And, they weren't Sunderland fans. They had no connection to Sunderland, really. They were coming to the show to see me and support me. And then they talk about how special it was, and then they got it as a result of watching everybody else got it. And, they were stood up at the end and they were singing along with everyone else, because it's like a religion sort of thing. And I was talking to one of my mates' mums, and she was saying, although I might not be, they're from Clitheroe in Lancashire, and she said, although I might not be a Sunderland fan, she was like, growing up, she was one girl in a household full of boys. I think she had like 6 brothers, and she went, they were all diehard Burnley fans. So she was like, I get what it means to love and support your football club. And she went, and that it couldn't have been more present in watching the Sunderland Story, just watching 2,000 people not only show love for their football club, but also show love and pride in their city. And I think Sunderland doesn't get that a lot. That, there's sometimes a pessimistic approach about Sunderland. It's a working class area. The people aren't, necessarily well off. It gets a bit of negative press. But actually, what this city deserves is something to make you feel proud to be from Sunderland. And I really do think this show goes a long way to giving that pride back to you and being like, you know what? Yeah, I'm from Sunderland. I support Sunderland Football Club, and I'm bloody proud about that.
How does that make you feel, Nicky, when you hear that you've been able to sort of, with your idea and your script and what this has grown into and stuff, how does that make you feel, being able to hear what Ainsley just had to say there about how much you've given, just to him and others?
Absolutely brilliant, really. No, thanks, Ains. It was great to hear you say that. No, honestly, that's probably the best part about doing a job, is all that kind of stuff. It's, it's not, they're not things that you hear often. And I'm thinking of Richie Pitt and your granddad. I'm also thinking of Richie Pitt's hair and what he looks like now. He was famous, wasn't he, for that It was Richie Pitt with the hair, wasn't it?
Yeah, like
I'm thinking of Richie Pitt's tackle about 20 seconds into the match when he just
yeah.
almost kills someone and he just gets up and gets on with it. You know,
I think everyone thought that would be Mickey Horsfall, and then because that's what he was famous for, wasn't it? Like tough tackling midfielder, and then Richie Pitt comes in and nearly breaks someone's legs within about 10 seconds. He's like, "Oh right, we're up for it here."
It's really great. It's really great to hear that stuff. What I would say, we're not often aware because we're on the other coast of the bad press that Sunderland gets, and being quite political myself in the past, less so today, because I think all politicians are basically not far off the same today. I think everyone's realised that. But one of the first things I noticed, which was quite funny, I have to tell you, it might be, Ainsley mightn't get it as much. You may not get it, Gavin, but I was walking through the shops in Sunderland and there was a little shop down. It was on the way to Hendon, because I walked around Hendon and realised it was quite a rough area, in the evening especially, because I did like bits of research. And there's this little shop in the middle of nowhere, and it's got these T-shirts in the window with "I still hate Thatcher." it just really made me laugh because I thought, like, she's hated in Liverpool. She was hated in Liverpool, and then I found this in Sunderland. I thought, oh my God! So we're not really aware of the bad press, but what we are aware of, and we all speak of it, we know that the other place further north gets most of what the northeast gets. And just lately, we've started to see buildings and stuff going up in Sunderland. And to a degree, it happened a lot in the northwest. So what a lot of stuff like buildings and new companies and money getting spent on a city, it was tending to go to Manchester a lot. And Liverpool started to lag behind because it was very political, very working class, quite rebellious in its way. But what's happened is I think Manchester's become like a little bit of a small London in the north now. And I think it's all pieces out to Liverpool. So Liverpool now is going through a bit of a boom now. And I'm starting to see it in Sunderland. I hope it's going to happen. But I can see buildings going up in Sunderland, the place getting cleaned out. And I'm just hoping it's a new rebirth. And you can only imagine what it would be like if the football club ends up in the Premiership and doing well, as the city has a rebirth too.
What would you say, Ainsley, to anyone who's on the fence about coming to the show then? Because it's only around the corner now, isn't it? It's not too far away. And
yeah, we open on the 15th, I think it is, 15th of May we open, yeah.
Yeah, so it's not too far away. People might be listening to this and missed out on it last time. And then, I remember the last time actually, because I went to it twice and I think by the end, you didn't have enough nights, did you?
That's exactly
demand
what
there was. So people, listening, if you're thinking I might get tickets, get tickets seriously. But what would you say to anybody who's maybe on the fence or doesn't really know about coming along?
I would probably say just give it a chance, because I can completely understand. You might think, football on the stage the two don't really add up. But honestly, the amount of people that came last time. James, who's in the cast, actually has a brilliant story where he talks about this one emotional part of the show, and he's playing the guitar and he's right down by the front, and he said the front row was full of those big baldy burly men who were all sat there, sort of nudging each other out the way, sort of type people. And he said they were watching it and they just had tears streaming down the face at one point. And these aren't people that go to the theatre. That's another beautiful thing about this show, is that it's bringing in an audience that might not necessarily engage with the theatre. And I totally get that, theatre isn't necessarily for everyone, but this show is for everyone, in my opinion. And honestly, if you are thinking you're not sure, just come and give it a chance. And I promise you'll get something out of the show, because it's got something for everyone. If you're a fan of musicals, it's got songs in, it's got a little bits of choreography. And if you're a fan of live music, there's a live band on stage, which they're wildly talented, far more talented than I'll ever be. And they're absolutely brilliant. They're playing live every night. What you see is what you get. And yeah, I promise you can hold me to this. If you do take a chance and you do come to it, I promise you'll have an absolutely fantastic night, and I'm only saying that because of the feedback we got last time. Everyone just really loved it, and we sort of took on a journey, as it were. I know you were saying earlier, Gav, about it's got laughs in it, it's got cry, there's sad moments in it. And I do stand by, I think this show has got something for everyone. So even if you're a football fan or not, a theatre fan or not, you'll get something out of this show 100%.
Yeah. Nicky, what about dates and tickets and things? How many dates is it on at the Empire, and where can people grab the tickets if they want to go?
To be honest with you, Gavin, you're losing me there because I'm so concentrated on rehearsals and, you get so nervous. You do get nervous around this time, but you don't tend to look at the dates. I know we open on the 15th. I think we're on for about 2 weeks. I don't know. I haven't even looked really.
I believe, I think we run until the 31st. So we're on the 15th to the 31st. Obviously, fingers crossed everything goes well. Sandwiched in between that run will be a playoff final. And if you were to come to the final week, you'd be celebrating us being Premier League champions. Sorry, not Premier League champions. Heading up
playoff
to the
champions.
Premier League from the Championship. Yeah, playoff champions. And we've actually spoke about Howard, the director, has said to us several times. He's like the last scene of the show at the moment. It's a little bit malleable. It's a little bit a work in progress, because obviously there's every chance that the dialogue might have to be changed because there's certain jargon regarding the Championship which won't necessarily be relevant anymore.
And we've got goals by Mayenda, goals by Isidore, goals by the current players. But what's going to be the big current goal? There might be a current goal that we need to make a big deal about.
Oh,
It
yeah.
would be perfect, wouldn't it? It would be absolutely perfect.
Can I just say while you're on there as well, I was on just finally for me anyway, I was on a holiday at the start of the last show about 2 years ago. I have never told Ainsley this. And I met a guy, Dave McGee, massive Sunderland fan, season ticket holder. And when I told him we were writing the Sunderland show, he was like, "You serious?" Yeah. Dave's my mate now, and when he came in, it's a bit like yourself, Gavin. He come to see the show and he never knew what to expect, and I was a bit nervous because I thought Dave's the kind who'll tell me, it was crap, or he'd say it was brilliant. And I sort of seen him in the reliever vault, and he went to me, "Mate, it was fantastic." I was like, "Oh, so I ended up grabbing him. I think he came in the show with me about 3 times, and he loved it that much. So, the great thing is with these shows as well, all the way through, you start to make, connections with good people. And I've met nothing but good people in Sunderland. I have to say it, I know it's a bit of a cliche, but they're very like Liverpool people. It's been through a lot of similar history, and I've been meeting some great people. I'm looking forward to meeting more as well.
Yeah, you were right, by the way, Ainsley. It does run until the 31st. So we've got from the 15th of May to the 31st of May, and tickets I've managed to find while we were chatting there can be found at atgtickets.com/Sunderland, and the price from £15. So you can go along with the family. It's a bit of a bargain. You get, you more than get your money's worth. I think I'm not just saying it because you guys are here, but I loved it last time, and I'm looking forward to going again this time, and I'm looking forward to being there on the opening night. It's pretty exciting. It's not too far away now, like I say, and I'm praying for you lot that, and obviously praying for the fan base as well, that we're celebrating promotion in the middle of all that, and it gives you the perfect end to this second run. I'm praying for it.
Thanks, Gav.
Well, it'll give the perfect ending to Sunderland's. I think we're in the worst period in Sunderland's history, aren't we? So it'll give the it'll give the perfect ending to that as well, and it'll put Sunderland Football Club where I believe and where everyone else really believes we should belong, is in the Premier League.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thank you very much, Nicky. Been great chatting to you, mate.
Thanks, Gavin. Thanks for everything. Listen, brilliant, and great hearing Ainsley speak about the show too.
Yeah, brilliant. And thanks, Ainsley, mate. Really appreciate it. And
thank you.
I think I'm going to have to grab you back at some point to do a match reaction pod or something with us, because
Gavin, where do I side? Where do I side? You tell me where to side, mate. I'm there, because I'd absolutely love that, honestly.
Brill. Thanks to the listeners. We've got plenty coming over the weekend. We've got, obviously, the reaction to the Oxford game. Plenty of podcasts coming every single day from Road Report and Howie the Podcast. So make sure you get subscribed. Make sure you buy your tickets for the show. Honestly, you will regret it if you're not there. So many of my mates have said, "I wish I went the first time." So that was your chance. You can go the second time. So make sure you get the tickets for the show. And we'll be back over the coming days. We'll see you later.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.